Good afternoon. My name is Tamika Fortune, and I'll be talking to you today about co-parenting. Co-parenting is a decision that two parents make when the marriage is no longer, or the relationship is no longer intact, and these two parents decide that they are going to work together to raise the child. And when I say that, I don't mean that the visiting rights are this parent comes to pick them up on this weekend and this certain day. It means that these two parents have gotten together and they make informed decisions about how they're going to raise their child and that child's development throughout that child's from their young early childhood all the way up to early adulthood. And so it's not about just raising children, it's about making a decision to raise the children together, although the parents are not still in a relationship together. So when you think about co-parenting, one of the first people things that people think about is, how do we decide what's going to be done? So the first thing that two parents ought to do is to sit down and think about the goals that they have set for their child. Think about those goals when the relationship was intact, what you were going to do together. You can still do those things as long as you guys have decided how you're going to get to those outcomes as far as raising that child is concerned. One of the things parents would need to think about is always making sure that they're doing what's best for the child. Keeping egos separate. Is this for your child or is this for you personally? What is the gain for? You want to make sure that when you're communicating with the other parent, that's always top of mind, the concern for the child. The next item is deciding what's essential for that child to be raised. Um, One of the essential things is, where will the child live? Who will be considered the primary parent? Even though you guys are co-parent together for legal things such as health insurance, schools, and things like that, the child will need to have one parent be claimed the primary parent. So decisions like that, again, will have to be made. And again, you must keep out of mind your ego. Um, if I let this parent become the primary account, where does that put me? It doesn't put you anywhere. It just says you are the first point of contact. And so when parents make these decisions, they need to sit down and have these conversations about, okay, who's going to be considered this? And determining that if there are other people in the relationships, like if there are step parents, how will the step parents be involved in these relationships? What is their part? Those are things that the two primary parents need to have before involving other people. The two parents need to come together and make those decisions about how their child will be raised before bringing in other parties. That's just the way that will keep the decision making not being influenced by outside parties. If those two parents come together to make the decision on how they're going to raise their child by co-parenting. One of the things that we need to also consider is to consider whatever rules that are in place, how are those rules going to be implemented for that child? Are they going to be consistent across the board? Ensuring that those rules are at household A the same as household B. Ensuring that if there's other parties involved, that those parties have permission to implement those rules. And how will those rules be implemented? The most important thing in this, as we get along a little further, is the child. You must always consider the child. The child has a voice. You have to listen to what is going on with the child. Where does that child perform the best? Is it at parent A or is it at parent B? Does he have a better relationship at parent A's household with their spouse or partner, or is it at parent B with their spouse or partner? You always look to see where the child is performing best, and that can be a part of that decision-making process. You always want to make sure that your child has a voice. You always want to make sure that your child has an open line of communication, that child can come to you with any issues. You want to always ask your child, what is going on with you? How are you feeling about this living situation? Is this still working for you? Is it having any outside effects on you? How are you feeling on the inside? Is this affecting any of your friendships? Is this affecting any of your performance? You always want to make sure that you maintain open line of communication, because the child at the heart of all of the matter is the most important thing. You want to make sure that the child is always at the top of concern in co-parenting. Another big key for co-parenting, the success of it, is communication. All parties must be communicated with on a regular basis. That means involving those step parents and partners. You must ensure that whatever concerns they have are being addressed with the child. If one set of step parent has uh, issues with how the child is behaving when they come back to that home or to visit or on the weekends or when that time is spent with that other step parent, those questions need to be addressed. And they need to be addressed in a friendly environment where everyone has a voice and that everyone can listen. And you also need to have time where the child is involved with all parties so that the child knows that this is what's going on with co-parenting. Understanding what it is to co-parent, understand that he is responsible for being in two households and that everybody's on the same page with their rearing. So at all times, you must make sure that both parties, both parents, are fostering relationships with household A and B, meaning both parties have relationships with one another. The best thing about co-parenting is it can be a very successful thing and it can have a child have more support than a normal family because they have extra parties involved. Communication is the biggest key with co-parenting, and that is the one thing that has to always be open, and everyone must be open to hearing and receiving feedback in order for those relationships to remain successful. And that is my speech on co-parenting.